Hello learners, welcome back to the course on learning and development in organization. We move to a new module. We'll be looking into sourcing interventions. What happens with learning and development typically as the organizations grow is that the requirement or the demand of learning and development also increases humongously. Incrementally it goes up so much that sometimes it will be difficult for the organization to arrange or to manage or to facilitate the learning and development. So typically there will be some sourcing that is done to outside world. This is the relevance of sourcing intervention. So we'll try to look into the sourcing intervention in greater detail in today's discussion. I'm Dr. Cyril Issac. I'm an assistant professor at the School of Business, Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati. Now, when you look into sourcing interventions, typically what we see is strategic sourcing isn't about the cheapest option. Please understand, we are looking into strategic sourcing, which is long term. It's about the right fit for capacity building. Now, this will be the underlying theme for today's discussion when we look into sourcing. How organizations actually outsource and mitigate the training and the learning needs. Let's understand this from the beginning. When we look into sourcing interventions particularly, sourcing interventions are strategic decisions. So we are aware about the fact that sourcing interventions means it is for long term, whether to deliver L&D programs internally or through external partners. As organizations typically face the rapid change and evolving workforce needs, these particular decisions are vital for ensuring an effective and future-ready learning altogether. So when you are looking into sourcing interventions, it is a critical aspect when we talk about or discuss about learning and development. So these interventions form a key part of an organization's L&D strategy and are increasingly important in today's dynamic and rapidly changing business landscape. So if you ask me, in a global environment characterized by technological disruption, shifting workforce expectations and evolving business models, organizations must typically respond with agility and foresight. Now, when you are looking into L&D departments that are undergoing pressure to deliver high impact learning solutions that not only addresses current competency gaps but also prepare the workforce for future demands, this is where the sourcing intervention plays the most important role. When you look into the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development CIPD 2015 report defines sourcing interventions as decisions that involve identifying whether to build internal learning capabilities or partner with external experts for training, design, development or delivery. So basically such interventions are guided by considerations related to cost, related to speed of implementation, the technological capability and alignment with the strategic goals altogether. Let's look into the significance of sourcing interventions. Elaborating on the significance of sourcing interventions, we have to typically understand that organizations adopt the sourcing interventions mainly because of these reasons. One is bringing in specialized expertise quickly. So you look into the aspect of bringing in specialized expertise quickly, you understand that internal L&D teams may not possess expertise in niche areas or let's say some emerging domains or niche areas, be it to name a few like AI, artificial intelligence or maybe sustainability practices or maybe digital marketing or blockchain technologies. So by sourcing from external vendors or academic institutions, companies can access expert knowledge and practical insights that are otherwise difficult to develop in-house within short time frames. So you see trainers and coaches and mentors coming from the outside world. This ensures learning solutions are both relevant and they are future oriented. The second important aspect which comes to my mind when we look into significance of sourcing intervention is enhancing the training quality through technology. Many external providers, they invest significantly in learning technologies such as, what we understand as LXP. People who do not know LXPs are learning experience platforms. Sometimes there are AI-based adaptive learning, sometimes there is gamification and immersive learning experiences using AR or VR. So these tools often enhance engagement, they often enhance retention and learner satisfaction, which can be more difficult to replicate internally due to budget constraints or technological limitations. Then we have optimizing resources by leveraging the external efficiencies. Developing every training module internally, it may result in duplication of effort, or even the cost parameter also will be very high. So external partners often offer scalable options, scalable pre-designed learning programs that can quickly be customized and deployed. So these scalable options are critical. This not only reduces the development time, if you ask me, but also ensures better use of L&D budgets through economies of scale. The fourth significant factor which underscores the significance of sourcing intervention would be accelerating learning in line with business needs. In highly competitive industries, the ability to upskill or reskill employees rapidly can be a key differentiator. So external sourcing allows organizations to fast track the implementation of learning solutions without being constrained by the internal bandwidth or the project delays. So this agility supports business continuity, it supports innovation and timely response to all the fluctuations or market trends. So ultimately, sourcing interventions, if you ask me, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, they are not merely operational choices, but they are, if I can use the word, strategic enablers. They are strategic enablers. Specifically, when carefully planned and aligned with business objectives, they empower organizations to build a learning ecosystem that is resilient, that is inclusive and performance driven. So these interventions allow L&D to act as a strategic partner in driving workforce transformation and achieving the long-term success. Now let's look into the strategic role of sourcing in L&D. When we think of sourcing, it plays a critical strategic role in organizational learning and talent development by ensuring that learning interventions are not only aligned with the current needs, but also contribute to long-term organizational objectives. So the first strategic role is enabler of capacity building, something which we have already started discussing previously. Strategic sourcing interventions help build organizational capability, no doubt about that. Whether it's equipping employees with, let's say, digital skills, or sometimes fostering innovation through leadership training, or enhancing resilience via crisis management programs, sourcing supports timely access to subject matter experts, world-class curricula and even globally benchmarked practices. So this, if you ask me, typically accelerates the closing of critical gaps and promotes the continuous learning. The second important aspect which I would like to address here is that it drives innovation and agility. Collaborating with external learning and development vendors, it allows organizations to integrate fresh perspectives, diverse pedagogical styles and innovative learning formats into their development programs. So this may include, something like flipped classrooms, typically, or mobile learning, or nano learning, or even simulation based learning programs, etc. So such innovations help L&D functions remain responsive to fast changing business environments and learner preferences altogether. The third significant factor which underscores the strategic role of sourcing is cost and resource optimization. A strategic approach to sourcing transforms fixed costs, like salaries or large in-house L&D staff or maintenance of physical training infrastructure into variable costs that can be scaled up or down based on need. So organizations can manage budgets more effectively by engaging vendors on a project basis or adopting pay-per-use models with learning technology platforms. So what we understand is that outsourcing certain training components, be it like, let's say, compliance modules or let's say something like language training or onboarding videos. So, these enables internal L&D teams to focus on core strategic initiatives that directly contribute to organizational growth. So, in the introductory video, I said that most of my lectures are heavily based on empirical research. So, I would like to quote one, Nelson and McCann 2010. Typically emphasizes that strategic sourcing in L&D should be aligned with business strategy to ensure the capability development supports long-term goals. So in essence, sourcing is not just about vendor selection. It is much beyond that. It is about aligning the entire learning value chain with the evolving business roadmap. Now let's look into the types of learning and development sourcing interventions. L&D sourcing interventions come in various forms, each offering distinct benefits depending on the organization's requirement. Organizations, I'll put it like strategic needs, budget, scalability requirements, or even the desired level of customization. So selecting the right sourcing type is vital for maximizing learning outcomes while balancing control and cost efficiency. So let's look into the different types very quickly. The first and the foremost one is in-house development. When you talk about in-house development, it typically involves developing and delivering. So you have both the processes, learning solutions entirely within the organization. So it allows for high levels of customization and alignment with company specific culture, values, and even strategic priorities. So while this method offers control over what we see as content quality and delivery, it can be time intensive and costly. So what we see in these patterns or this type of arrangement is that the customization is high, the cost can be set to medium, the scalability is medium. Best use case will be something like culture specific training or onboarding or let's say proprietary process learning, etc. The second type of L&D sourcing intervention would be outsourcing, one of the most common type, in fact, I will say. So this collaborative model blends internal and external capabilities. We can take an example. Let's say internal L&D may manage the learning strategy while external partners develop content. So it combines both the aspects. So customization can be medium to high, cost can be again medium, scalability again can be something from medium to high specifically. The best use case would be niche domains such as data analytics, legal compliance, or IT. This would certainly come under this. Now there is a possibility that has emerged with respect to core sourcing, or what we call it as hybrid model. So this collaborative model blends internal and external capabilities. For example, internal L&D may manage the learning strategy while external partners develop content. So it combines internal control with external innovation. The customization would be high here. The cost again would be medium. The scalability would be medium again because it's a hybrid model. Best use case is that, let's say, leadership development or in case of cross-functional learning programs, etc. Then we look into another model, which is licensing and subscription-based learning. This model involves purchasing or subscribing, as is a functional word, to off-the-shelf learning resources from, let's say, providers like LinkedIn Learning or Coursera or Skillsoft or even our platform of NPTEL. So it offers instant access to a vast content library across various subjects. So you have low customization, you have low cost. Very important, scalability is very high. You can go to any level, see the lakhs of people attending this particular course. Best use case could be is foundational self-paced learning, and you have continuous professional development as a result. You look into another type, you'll see that there is something called as MLS, Managed Learning Services. These are a comprehensive outsourced models in which an external vendor manages end-to-end L&D services. It would include strategy, it would include administration, it would include content delivery and evaluation. So, it is ideal for large, complex or even global L&D operations. What we see here is that the customization is medium, the cost is high, the scalability is high, and if you want to understand the best use case, organizations with decentralized global teams needing standardized learning delivery could be one of the aspects. So, as emphasized by Hall and Moss, I would recommend you to read this. Hall and Moss 1998 or Sloman 2011 or more recently even Garavan et al. The effectiveness of any sourcing strategy depends on choosing the model that best aligns with organizational priorities while offering the right balance of flexibility, control and innovation. Now, let's quickly look into the criteria for selecting L&D providers. So, many a time most organizations struggle with this, how to select the right L&D provider. There are certain reference points when you look into selecting the L&D providers, certain thumb rules, certain objective criteria. Start with the expertise and credibility. Evaluate vendors on their track record, as we discussed in the previous session about the case studies and certifications in relevant domain. Look into the alignment with the learning goals part. Providers must demonstrate a strong alignment between their offerings and organization's competency framework and learning objectives. What is the technology and the delivery platform these people are using? Look into that. Ensure that there is compatibility with the existing LMS that you are using in your organization, or availability of mobile learning options are there, use of AI is there, use of gamification, analytics, all these technology driven aspects are there. Then look into the flexibility and customization part. When you look into the flexibility and customization part, vendors should offer options to localize or tailor content for diverse audiences and evolving needs. And then measurement and ROI. Providers must support impact measurements using AI models, or providers must support impact measurement using models like what we have seen earlier, Kirkpatrick's 4-level model or the Phillips ROI methodology, etc. So, these are the typical aspects with respect to selecting a best L&D provider. Now, let's look into the make versus buy decision. The make versus buy decision is one of the classic decisions in L&D, because it's a fundamental strategic choice organizations face when they are sourcing the learning intervention. So, it involves determining whether to develop and deliver learning programs internally, that is what the make element is, or to procure them from external vendors or partners, that is the buy element. So, this decision, if you ask me, impacts not only cost and timeline, but also the quality, the relevance and the long-term effectiveness of learning initiatives. So, let's start with the make aspect. Make is nothing but more of an in-house development. Every single aspect has its own advantages and disadvantages. We start with the advantages. When you look into in-house development, it has greater control and customization, because internal teams have direct oversight over the content, delivery, adaptation, allowing training to be closely aligned with organizational cultures, organizational values, and even the specific business processes. So, this is especially critical for highly customized or sensitive training topics such as compliance or leadership development. Then there is cultural alignment. So, in-house programs can embed company-specific scenarios and language, fostering relevance and learner engagement. Then there can be long-term capacity building, capacity growth or capability growth. Developing learning content internally can build the organization's L&D capability. That's what we understand, and it can have a positive impact on the knowledge base, reducing the future dependency on external providers. That said, there are some critical drawbacks that are associated with the make or in-house development, which are definitely higher cost and revenue and resource intensive aspects. Creating and maintaining high quality learning programs, if you think, it requires investment in skilled instructional designers, content developers, or even facilitators and technology infrastructure. So this is an outcome of the study Bersin 2014. I would recommend you to read, where they have classically told that all these requirements are there with respect to high cost and resource intensivity of learning and development when you are looking into in-house development. Slower time to market is another problem. Internal development can be time consuming, potentially delaying the rollout of the critical training needed to respond to fast changing skill demands. There can be limited expertise problem. Internal teams may actually lack specialized knowledge in emerging or niche areas, be it areas like AI or cybersecurity or new technologies, restricting the scope of training offered. The diametrically opposite aspect of this would be buy, that is outsourcing or partner. It has certain advantages and disadvantages, as in the previous case. We'll start with advantages. There's a faster rollout that is possible, and external providers with ready-made content and delivery platforms enable quick deployment of the training programs critical for rapid skill development or compliance needs. There can be expert access, to specified content. Vendors often bring deep domain expertise and industry best practices that would be expensive or impractical to develop internally. There could be some technological advancements, tech edge, external providers frequently using cutting-edge platforms featuring AI-driven personalization, gamification, virtual classrooms, etc. There could be cost efficiency with respect to buying or outsourcing. For standard or widely available content, let's say something on topics like workplace safety or some software skills, outsourcing can be more cost effective than building in-house. But then again, there are certain drawbacks. There is a possibility of potential misalignment. Off-the-shelf solutions may not fully reflect company culture or specific learning needs, reducing the impact and reducing the engagement. There could be some vendor lock-in risk that is possible. What is emerging because of the dependence on a limited number of providers, and create risk related to pricing, related to data ownership and flexibility. There could be issue of data privacy and security concerns. External delivery may raise issues about protection of sensitive organizational or employee information, especially when cloud-based platforms are used. Now let's quickly look into key factors influencing the make versus buy decisions. One is, of course, the strategic fit or the strategic importance. Programs tied closely to core competencies, company culture, or sensitive business knowledge tend to favor in-house development for all the control and alignment. There could be urgency and scale. High urgency or large-scale training initiatives may be better suited to external providers who can deploy quickly and efficiently across geographies. Budget and resources availability would be a concern. Financial constraints and availability of skilled L&D professionals becomes a concern. There could be problems with the need for learning standardization. There could be also issues with respect to the time horizon, long-term or short-term focus. So long-term strategic learning investments support building internal capabilities, whereas short-term needs may favor more of a buying solution. When you look into learning and development sourcing, there are certain challenges also. The first and the foremost one is quality assurance. There is variability in vendor standards. Please note this. Variability in vendor standards is always there. It is only a difference of certain degrees. So not all training providers adhere to industry best practices or use evidence-based instructional methods. So this variability can lead to inconsistent learner experiences and subpar training outcomes. There could be lack of contextual customization also here in terms of quality assurance. Generic or off-the-shelf programs may lack the necessary customization to address the specific skill gaps or strategic business priorities. Then the second aspect is vendor reliability. There could be service disruptions, issues like staff turnover or financial instability, or let's say overcommitment to multiple clients can affect their ability to deliver on time and as promised. Then there is lack of flexibility that is also possible within vendor reliability. Some providers may not accommodate evolving organizational needs or changes in scope, or let's say leading to rigid contractual constraints. Then there is typically the aspect of data security and compliance. Compliance with regulations. Vendors must comply with data protection laws, be it the GDPR or GDPR in Europe, as you know. CCPA is there, which we have discussed in California. India's Digital Personal Data Protection Act, if you know, it is DPA. Then there will be failure to do so, which can expose the organization to legal and reputational risk. Then there are certain cyber security risks also associated, which comes under the data security and compliance. Over dependence typically on external providers is also a critical problem that has emerged because of loss of strategic insight or weakened learning culture. A strong learning culture is often built through consistent internal messaging and role modeling, so elements that may be diluted when content delivery is outsourced. And finally, you have cultural misalignment. It comes through cultural irrelevance, examples, language, teaching styles that do not reflect local work practices or cultural norms that can reduce learner engagement and knowledge retention. Diverse learning preferences might be there. Learning modalities that work well in one region may be ineffective in another due to different expectations around the learning style. So these are some of the challenges in sourcing L&D. Now let's look into the trends and best practices in L&D sourcing. The moment you talk about trends and best practices, I should start with the digital learning ecosystems. You have the integrated platforms, be it the LMS, LXP, MOOCs, what we are doing right now. Organizations increasingly seek external providers who offer systems with personalized interfaces, social learning and gamification features. You have cloud-based platforms also there. These platforms typically offer scalability and remote accessibility, crucial in hybrid work environments. Then there are this micro and adaptive learning, short AI driven content which boosts retention and engagement. So, these are typically the go-to aspect for many vendors, for many organizations. So many vendors now offer AI-driven adaptive learning paths that respond to learners' preferences, pace and prior knowledge. So we get high engagement rates, we get customized journeys because of this micro and adaptive learning. Then there is this learning as a service, the LaaS model. LaaS refers to subscription-based models where organizations pay for access to curated learning libraries from platforms like, let's say, LinkedIn Learning or Coursera or Udemy for business, NPTEL, etc. So cost effective and scalable they are. Continuous updates will be there. The fourth one would be the collaborations with academia and startup. Organizations will have strategic partnerships with university, edtech startups or innovation, with universities, edtech startups and innovation hubs that allow organizations to co-create cutting-edge learning programs. So there can be, credentialing opportunities here. There can be innovation and relevances here. We also see that, there are some best practices in L&D sourcing, vendor evaluation frameworks. You look into the capability fit first. You understand whether this is the right choice for you. You look into the track record specifically, the reputation, technology stack. You look into the content relevance and customization. You look into support services and flexibility. Then there is this balanced sourcing mix we call, where you have a mix of hybrid aspects, like internal control will be there, external innovation will be there. Sometimes you can actually have cost optimization because of this through diversification. Then there are knowledge transfer aspects. Typically, one of the most strategic advantages of outsourcing is the potential to upskill internal teams by leveraging external experts. So shadowing is there, train the trainer models are there, joint content development will be there, mentoring and co-facilitation will be there. All these aspects come under knowledge transfer. Then you have the continuous improvement, where you look into the different levels in Kirkpatrick, like learner satisfaction, knowledge acquisition, behavioral change, application, business outcomes, and return on investment typically. So when you are looking into strategic L&D, sourcing is not merely a procurement task, it's about designing a learning ecosystem that is adaptive, resilient, and aligned with business transformation. So to thrive in this evolving landscape, I would say organizations must stay ahead of trends like what we discussed this last, or AI-driven personalization with institutionalizing best practices around vendor management, knowledge retention, and continuous improvement. So when we look into the outsourcing aspect, most of the organizations promote learning and development or actively get involved in learning and development because of the existence of the possibility of outsourcing. Otherwise, it's difficult. We have seen how difficult it is to bring out in-house. It is not that it is not there. Some of the organizations try to venture in, but time, cost, labor, highly intensive it is. So please note, ladies and gentlemen, that you are looking into good opportunities of learning outside your organization. The organizations should also take the cue that it's their benefit. It's for them to actually promote people to go and learn and do more such practices or engage in more such learning and development activities. Thank you for listening to me patiently. We'll come up with more details of learning and development in the next class. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.